Welcome to Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. This podcast is about the journey to a more sustainable future in order for us to be able to do our bit to achieve net zero. I'll be discussing a variety of topics with experts in their field in order to educate and increase our knowledge of clean energy, electric vehicles and the electric vehicle infrastructure. So whether you're an individual wanting to make a difference at home, a small business or a corporate, this podcast is just for you. On today's podcast, I have got Jarrad Morris, who is the founder of Fleety and Plug Charging, and you're based in Cardiff, aren't you, Jarrad? And thank you very much for joining me.
No problem at all. Glad to be on here.
And so we met, and it seems ages ago now, but we met at the EV show in November 2022, didn't we? It is ages ago, really. We've been trying to get you on here for a while. So thank you, because I know you're a busy guy.
No, all good. Love to be on it. Thank you.
Now, I'm going to read a few things out because you've got a number of accolades against your name over the last kind of few months, haven't you? So you're a finalist in the Fleety Startup Awards. You've won the Great British Sustainability Entrepreneur of the Year. That's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? They could have turned it into an acronym. Cardiff Entrepreneur of the Year. And you were one of the top 100 most influential people of the year. I mean, that is. How did you manage to do all that? That's amazing. Well done.
Thanks. I think it's just lots of consistent work and just chipping away at it throughout the year. A few of those were unexpected as well, to be honest. So. Yeah, I was glad the judges picked me on a couple of those awards, particularly the top 100 most influential people. There's a few big hitters on there. I think Ben Fogle's on there, which is obviously doing a lot for the environment, and I think there's a few other guys on there as well. So that was a bit of a surprise. It'd be interesting to see what comes off the back of that, because that was announced in December for 2023. So really good, and really proud and privileged to be on those lists.
Totally, that's amazing. So well done you. Fabulous. Thanks. So when we met, you were exhibiting at the EV show and with plug charging, and you had a big prototype vehicle, and I was with my colleague Chris, and we were kind of wandering around it, and I think I saw you. We started talking to you then, didn't we? So, and it's a rather large, clean fueled vehicle, isn't it? Just explain what it is, will you? And just kind of why the prototype? Why did you decide to create this prototype?
Yeah, no, definitely. So we were at the show with the manufacturing partner who actually built the vehicle, and the whole concept behind the vehicle and the idea behind it is effectively a mobile EV charging solution. So targeting a number of different areas, whether that's areas without off-road parking, whether that's music festivals, effectively anywhere there's demand for EV charging, but without that fixed infrastructure. So you can obviously aware there's other mobile EV charging solutions already in the market. One of the kind of USPs we were going on for that was the fact that it was going to be rapid, and with an onboard power generation system as well, using clean fuels. The opportunity to scale that, and effectively, rather than having one charge and going back and need to recharge a battery in some sort of vehicle, we could keep going throughout the night basically and charge vehicles. And kind of the idea with that was, if you live in London, for example, with no driveway, as a prime example, we could come outside to your house in the middle of the night and plug in, charge your car for you. You wake up in the morning to go to work with a fully charged EV. I think that's a real benefit for some people, and we see it all the time. And some of the barriers of switching to electric is charging, whether that's public charging or the lack of opportunity to have an off-road home charging solution. So that's kind of where the mobile charging opportunity came from, and we are still looking to progress with that, and that's something we'll be launching fully in the next probably 12 to 18 months to cater for the demand.
Excellent. And actually, talking about charging, I'm just going to go on to a slightly different topic, which is something that you were writing about on LinkedIn that I read today, which I think you'd written a couple of days ago, which was about the Wales. Maybe it was in the last day, about Wales and kind of the lack of charging, and the fact that the Welsh government haven't quite well, I'm saying haven't quite hit their target. Are they massively off their target for EV charging rollout?
Well, I think there's in 2021 there was an action plan set out by Welsh Government post-pandemic. The whole idea behind that action plan was to improve the availability of charging infrastructure. So one of the mission statements they set out was by 2025, if you're an EV driver for business or personal usage, you should always have access or readily available access to an EV charging point, whether that's public charging in your local area or whether that's the availability of home charging. So that massive report, if you have a read of it, it's about 25 pages. If you have a look at that action plan set out a number of key aims which they were looking to achieve. I believe it was 9 in total. So some of those aims cover things like improving the grid connectivity in rural areas where EV charging really is limited. And particularly in Wales, there's a massive disparity in the distribution of charge points across Wales, with rural areas really suffering. Another one of those was around the regulations associated with developers and the requirement to implement EV charging as part of development plans, whether that's residential or commercial. That was something which was due to be looked at, similar to what they've done in Scotland. A few of the other things were looking at the growth of fast chargers, so not rapid, so you're looking at kind of 7 to 22 kilowatt chargers in your local areas. So they set a really ambitious target of having a total charger count of 55,000 by 2025, which that's hugely ambitious with that type of timescale, and obviously there's so many different external factors which come into that. So I think at present they've hit 2,400 installs and actually live chargers since then. So off the back of that action plan, which was set out across Parliament Committee in the Senedd, which is the Welsh Parliament in Cardiff, they were basically asked to look at what's happened with the plan, what's been achieved, what's not been achieved. And I think one of the main headlines and which come off the back of that yesterday, and some of the comments they made, and one of the terms they used was embarrassing. Was the result of the action plan and what they've actually achieved. So they've actually missed 5 of the 9 deadlines they set in terms of those targets, and obviously fallen massively short of their targets in terms of the installs as well. And I don't think it's completely their fault in its entirety. There's so many different external factors in that, whether that's charge point operators are not really incentivised to invest in Wales at the moment compared to Scotland. Businesses are obviously incentivised a little bit with the workplace charging scheme. You do have the fact that the home charging scheme was abolished last year, so the grant, when that disappeared for that, the cost of living crisis, people aren't going to be incentivised to spend £1,000 on a home charger if they can't afford to, and that's even if they have a drive. So all of a sudden there's lots of different factors involved in that, but ultimately a lot of the blame does fall on Welsh Government for not following through on some of the commitments they made. And I think also a bit of naivety in the fact that they should have engaged with people in the industry to look at where things should have gone. So, where things like public charging, where that distribution across Wales should have gone, where the grid connections should have been improved in rural areas. They should be engaging with people like myself. There's other people in the EV sector in Wales. South Wales, particularly at the moment, is a bit of a hotbed for people in EV. And there's plenty of people who are willing to give their advice free of charge to help facilitate the switch to EV. But it's not really being pulled upon. So, it's a really interesting one. And I think the response from Welsh Government yesterday was disappointing in the fact that they came out and basically said off the back of that report, because obviously it's an independent report, so they don't really get any control over it because it's a cross-party committee. But off the back of that, they came out and said, well, we've put the foundations in place, we've got some key partners in place, and we're making moves towards it. But if I set targets in my business and 9 out of 9 targets 5 were missed, I'd seriously be asking questions about the direction of that strategy, and I'd be looking at who to blame for that and how we can improve on it, as opposed to trying to dodge the bullet on it and trying to say we are doing well. So it'd be interesting to see if they respond in a more positive fashion and start engaging with people in the sector now to try and look at working collectively and commercially as well to achieving something beneficial.
So they've got, what did you say, 2,400 charge points currently, and they'd promised how many?
I think it's 55,000 in total by 2025.
So, obviously, like you said, the estimate was massively underestimated, wasn't it? How much the issue, to actually kind of roll this out. Is there any way in your mind that they can get to that target within the time scale?
I think hitting that target is probably too ambitious, but they're definitely not going to get anywhere near that target if they currently if they follow the same strategy they're currently following.
Yeah.
The problem they've got with plug charging as a new charge point operator to the market. We see it, and there's existing charge point operators I know for a fact have tried to enter the market in Wales, not really being incentivised to do so. If you're trying to do anything in Scotland, there's a pot of money available to improve public charging infrastructure. If you come to Wales, actually that pot of money is very limited in comparison. So when you start looking at new connection costs and the cost of getting the DNOs to actually come on board and install the new connections, that cost could be huge in particular areas because the grid connectivities in certain areas aren't as good as they need to be. And we've experienced that firsthand, but also we've experienced the bureaucracy in going to local councils or Welsh government and saying, look, we have a solution. Can you implement it? And that gets passed around the houses, and before you know it, you're 8 months into a process which fizzles out. So I think there needs to be a degree of entrepreneurship is probably one of the words I'd use for it. You need to have a bit of an entrepreneurial approach to it, where they think, well, actually, let's have a go of this and let's try it and see how it works. And I think that's the only way they're going to hit that target. If they start saying, well, it's got to go through a process for 8 months for approval to get these chargers put into an empty car park, which is otherwise being overgrown and not used, then I think they have no hope hitting the target.
No.
So, yeah, something has to change, and I think that comes down to them taking more of a commercial view, engaging with people in the industry, and taking more of an entrepreneurial view on how things roll forward from a policy standpoint as well. So
do you think that's, because the rest of the UK is... So England, I know that we've still got quite a massive target to meet for charge points anyway, haven't we? Is it the incentive that is provided in England that is kind of supporting charge point operators and DNOs, etc., in order to kind of, because there's a lot of negativity anyway about this, but there's going to be more negativity, isn't there? If you find out that there's been, like I say, for the Welsh government, that there's been this massive issue with the amount that they've said. Why would you say this unless you know that you've got some gut feeling? Well, even more than gut feeling, there's got to be data to prove that actually you can do this. But is it the comparison? So you say about Scotland there are incentives. So there's incentives in England as well.
Yeah, I think
just not in Wales.
I think there's definitely little to no incentive in Wales to install public charge infrastructure, and I think what a lot of local authorities are doing is they're looking to central government and higher powers to have that guidance and leadership. But the problem is that no one has taken that guidance and leadership and central government. So there was supposed to be a committee formed when the action plan was basically announced, and before that as well, which was called a connection committee. That connection committee would basically look to work with DNOs and charge point operators and local stakeholders to find out where those charge points should be installed, and other committees as well to advise them. They've not formed that, which I think is a problem, because you've got politicians and civil servants looking to make infrastructure decisions based on industry, which is quite new to everyone still, despite it only it's been around for 10, 15 years so far.
It's still embryonic.
Exactly, yeah. So I think we're very early stages, and I think they're trying to make decisions based on information which isn't available to them, whereas information is available to the industry. So if they'd come to people who are the fleet operators and charge point operators like us, or maybe insurance companies, there's Direct Line have got a huge business setup in Cardiff. Admiral similarly as well. There's EV leaders there who we speak to. There's data they have on this distribution of electric vehicles across Wales that they could very easily pull from that data. Where are those gaps in usage? So look where the least number of electric vehicles are registered, and let's look at those areas and see, is there a gap in the network infrastructure there? And if there is, then maybe that's where we need to put the charge points, as opposed to probably paying a very expensive consultancy company to come in and provide white papers and say, well, we think they should go here based on some figures that we've looked at. Actually get down in the trenches and speak to people who are dealing with the sharp end and the good, the bad, and the ugly, and let them advise on it.
I always say to people, because background that I work in continuous improvement, I always say get down into working with the people who've actually got eyes on it, because they're the ones that can give you context, and they're they're working their way through it, rather than just bringing somebody in who has to research it. You've
100%.
If you've got it there, if you've got that ability to be able to provide, you've got these people there, then just utilize that. But back to you. Tell me about Fleety. How did you form Fleety? What was your? Because I think were you working with no, just, I'm going to shut up. Tell me about your background.
So
how did you get into it?
So my background is predominantly in vehicle leasing and vehicle finance. So started my first leasing company in 2015. Prior to that, I was involved in asset finance and project finance. Prior to that, I was in Cardiff University and Cardiff Business School. So spent 3 years there. Looked at working with a couple of people, and then I went off on my own to start my own setup. So I've got a real good background in vehicle leasing over the last 7 years, which sounds like a very long time. And then left my last setup in 2021. In that setup, we did vehicle hire. We had a franchise for LEVC, so the electric taxis. So we opened the first one of that into Cardiff, and we did just vehicle leasing for normal ICE vehicles. I was always looking at the opportunity, particularly with electric vehicles, and lots of the stuff that we were looking at with regards to public sector was really kind of going in that direction. So lots of our clients were saying, we're being asked now on tenders, for example, about the provision of electric vehicles, and what are we including in our fleet to address those green credentials. So then made the decision to split off from that setup and go by myself again then, and basically form Fleety from a standing start, but only focusing on EVs. And I think where a lot of those ideas came from was the lack of information in the industry. And I think particularly back then, we're in the middle of a global stock shortage coming out the back of COVID as well. We've got the semiconductor issues all over the place. It was just a crazy time for everyone. You couldn't really go into dealerships as well because there was still the restrictions with regards to people being inside to an extent, which I think really added to it. So not only was there very little stock available, so very little choice, you couldn't go and touch or feel a vehicle of your choice. You couldn't really speak to them face to face and have those conversations. And lots of the people that and contacts and networks I've built up over the years, really needed that, I think, and really needed that that hand-holding piece of saying, well, what are you looking to achieve as a business? What vehicles do you run currently, and how can we assist with that? And how can we recommend the best way of funding those vehicles? So started Fleety in March 2021, so 2 years old this month, and really started trading fully with that by the time of the FCA license, etc. Through that was in kind of probably August, September, but really didn't do anything because there was literally no stock around. So spent all of that time then just building the client base in terms of speaking to people and doing lots of webinars on the switch to EV, and just really being just a fountain of knowledge for people, and using my years of experience in leasing on how to recommend what vehicles people should be going for, and start building that personal brand piece on being a kind of a go-to person in the industry when it comes to looking to switch to EV. So that's where it's kind of developed from, and it's kind of grown arms and legs from there, I think. So when we first started the business, we were just doing contract hire. So we'd do normal business contract hire and personal contract hire for leasing. Now we basically cater for long-term, short-term and medium-term stuff, so company car schemes. So short-term stuff we'll do flexi, so anything from kind of 30 days onwards, which is a great taster for businesses, or a great opportunity for people to fill a short-term gap in their vehicle requirement with an EV. We then do the traditional leasing through the panel of funders that we work with, so business contract hire and personal contract hire across all brands. Then we also have the Fleety salary sacrifice platform. So we have the opportunity to work with lots of businesses. Again, giving them the opportunity to basically speak to us and have the knowledge, but also use our portal to order vehicles. And scale that as they need to. So we're trying to maintain the personal touch and the consultative approach, but also trying to scale that up as well then in line with what we're trying to achieve as a business.
Well, I was going to say the accolades that you've had recently kind of demonstrate the personal touch and kind of the professionalism that you're putting into, and the effort that you're putting into this, into the sector in the first place. And actually, and said to you before, as somebody who's not actually just got an EV just yet, you are the kind of you're the kind of person that people like me need to be talking to, because um, it's not a cheap transition. I mean, when we talk about cost of ownership, I get that, I do get it, but actually it's not just the financial side to it. It's the physical kind of working out what how do I need to do this, what behavior do I have to change. And at the moment it's all theoretical to me, but to have somebody like to talk to yourself who kind of can provide that support and advice, it's just a massive help for people.
Yeah, I think what we've seen in previous businesses as well with leasing, having a vehicle is the second biggest financial commitment you'll make in your lifetime. Compared to you've obviously got a house first and a mortgage, etc. Then then you've got your vehicle. So whether you're buying that outright and with a normal car, it could be anything from 15 grand or up to the sky's the limit. So I think you've already got that uncertainty from people when they're making that commitment, because it is a big it is a big commitment, and it shouldn't be taken lightly, and you need to consider all avenues on that and make sure you're furnished with all the right information before you make your decision. If you now add into that uncertain decision, or you've got even more uncertainty in that process, you're talking about the range aspect of that. Is that suitable for you? As a personal user, the range is one of the things. The home charging, does that work for you? If you then start introducing the business questions into that as well, so things okay, what are the tax benefits of me switching to EV? Is this EV going to be a good fit for my business and what I try to achieve as a business? And I think for businesses it's even worse, and I think them making that commitment is an even bigger leap, because if that goes wrong, that's a big impact on the business. So if you're a business and you've got 10 sales guys on the road and you're giving them 10 cars to drive around in, and then all of a sudden they're all annoyed because they can't get the range because you've chosen the wrong vehicle, that comes straight back on the fleet manager or the MD, for example, depending on who's made that decision. And then it's the whole thing of trying to unwind that process, which in most cases is quite difficult depending on the contract they've got. So I think where we try and front load it is have that consultative approach right at the start. So when they do make that decision, it's very much a case of saying, right, we've gone through the decision tree of information you've given us, and off the back of that, we recommend this. And obviously, we compare that with the finance option of their choice as well.
So is e-fleet more kind of a Fleet E? Sorry, yeah, thank you. Is it more B2B? Would you say, rather than B2C?
Yeah, so I think 90% of our business is B2B at the moment. Obviously, Salary Sacrifice is a company car product. So, with that one, that's 100% B2B. But obviously, we deal with employees. So there's the level of information they have as an employee compared to a business owner is different, because when you're looking at Salary Sacrifice, that's again a different suite of information that they need. So, what are the tax benefits of them having a Salary Sacrifice vehicle? What's included in that vehicle? The early termination options, all of those different pieces come into that as well. So even though that is B2B, we still treat that as a B2C transaction to an extent in terms of the information that we furnish them with. I think the B2C piece comes into it on the shorter term stuff that we do as well. So some of the shorter term stuff where people are looking maybe to try an EV for 12 months, or maybe have EV on order and then looking for a stopgap. That's predominantly, it's probably 50% business, 50% consumers. But we are definitely seeing a switch towards more consumers looking to go to EV, but they are definitely more conscious on the public charging points that are being raised, and obviously particularly in Wales because it's currently in the press. But I think there's lots of stuff in the press generally at the moment around EV charging, lots of horror stories which constantly annoy me, because they're picking the worst that they find, and taking pictures of Teslas queuing at charging points at Christmas.
No.
Circulating that, but equally they don't take pictures of fuel stations when there's a rush on fuel, because people think the price is going to go up 2 pence or something like that. And even when I was driving an ICE, I've been in situations where I had to queue for fuel for maybe half an hour, once or twice, but you never see that in the press. So
No.
yeah, I think it's a real tricky one at the moment.
even if it was in the press originally when it happened, there wouldn't be a comparison now. They'd
No.
call it a unique episode, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, and then there's people who kind of the negativity is sometimes you just have to put your fingers in your ears and go la 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 la, because actually, do we? For those, I call them negative Nellies. The negative Nellies out there. It's going to take them a while to actually kind of come round to all of this, because I always say it. People don't like change, and somebody said, you've got to stop expecting that everybody's like you, and it's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
You are an early adopter. I'm kind of like not early, definitely not early. I'm kind of like probably earlier than some of them, and then there'll be other people once things start. Once people realise, it's a bit like during the pandemic when you realise you have no choice,
Yeah.
but to do certain things in a different way. That's when there'll be kind of like a massive rush, and then there'll be something kind of like EVs are flying off the shelf again. There'll be photos and comparisons of vegetables or something weird like that.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting to look on things like Facebook and places like that when you see an EV story being posted and the comment section on people, and their response to that story. There's some negative comments in there which you can just see are just fueled by the media. And the Sun at the moment seems to have a particular vendetta against electric vehicles, and they just constantly keep posting stories about negative things on electric vehicles, and you can see a lot of that rhetoric is following through into the comments on social media. But again, it's down to education. People if someone's never driven an EV and experienced the practicalities of it, then they're going to think it's the worst thing ever when someone says to them, "Oh, you can have a car which drives 200 miles and then you need to charge it for 9 hours." They don't say that actually you can get a car which does 300 miles and you can charge a car on a rapid charger which just takes 40 to 50 minutes. So I think having those snippets of information, which are the key bits of information to, I think, ease that range anxiety piece for people who haven't adopted yet is crucial.
What do you think? So you just mentioned Facebook there. How do you feel about the way that people think about EVs on LinkedIn compared to Facebook? Because I suppose I don't spend too much time anymore on Facebook, and it wouldn't be something I was looking for on Facebook, because I'm looking for something different on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about that kind of the negative positive angle in LinkedIn?
I think it's slightly different for us just on the Facebook point, because we use that as probably one of our main strategy indicators as well. Look at those questions that Joe Public are saying about those comments, and look what they're saying, and then start tailoring those into our conversations as well that we're having. And if we don't know about it, then we'll find out about it and start saying, well, actually, this is how we can help with alleviating that concern. But I think we do see it on LinkedIn, and often I get people commenting on my posts saying hydrogen cars are the future, and we're involved in the hydrogen sector with plug charging. So some of our fixed charge points and obviously some of the mobile charger stuff that we're looking at involves green hydrogen. That's a larger scale usage of a fuel such as hydrogen. Hydrogen cars, as far as I'm concerned, and in my personal opinion, have no future. I just think they're not efficient enough, and the energy which is required to create hydrogen is just not suitable for that use. So I think lots of people do comment back on some posts I say, saying electric cars are 5 years, hydrogen cars are going to be the future. There's a reason why BP have pulled all their hydrogen fuel stations in the UK, and there's a reason why some of the major OEMs have shelved their hydrogen car research and development and production plans, because they don't see it as the future. Everyone's looking towards battery electric vehicles, and I think as battery technologies improve and ranges start to improve, I think we'll hit a tipping point almost where the naysayers will start saying, well, actually, a car which does 400 miles or 450 miles is great and that works for me. So there's always some heated conversations on LinkedIn, which is also quite interesting, and it's quite interesting because a lot of people I'm connected to are obviously in the EV sector, so they tend to wade in on conversations then and start laying down some facts on people, which is also quite interesting. But no one's there to talk anyone down, but equally there's an opportunity there to educate people and inform them on what the benefits of switching to EV are, whether they want to like it or not. But there's been a couple of heated conversations on LinkedIn I've seen, and some in my comments as well.
Yeah, and I suppose I've heard it from many other people in the sector who said the same. They've all said, yeah, we kind of manage these conversations, and you get trolls and this, that, and the other, and I mean, I think I've got my thoughts about social media, and it does just give social media and the media in general, it's kind of it's an open house for people who just want to, if they want, you can have the trolls there who'll just slag you off no matter what, won't they? And you can say whatever, and you're never ever going to make everybody happy all of the time.
No, exactly. I think the difference is as well now. I think as EV becomes more popular, there's more actual studies and white papers which are actually available using actual data as well on the efficiencies, and people talking about well, actually by the time you actually manufacture the EV, it's not efficient. There's now life cycle calculations which have been taken into account, which work out the carbon break even of an EV. So those pieces of data, I think, are key pieces of information which need to be shared with people that kind of have those comments. And also EVs, they think are going to last longer, and we talk about the second life of batteries, and I wrote a blog which is on our website around the second life of batteries. There's a company in Canada who thinks they can currently recycle 98% of a battery. So if we're there at the moment with the average, think about a battery in a car. When that comes out of a car, there's opportunities to use that, for home battery storage. If it's in a car for say 10 years, comes out of a car and then it goes into a home storage system for 10 years. That battery is then 20 years old. If you look where we were 20 years ago and look at the technological advancements from 20 years ago, if I was a betting man, I'd put a good chunk of money on betting the fact that they're going to be able to basically recycle a whole battery within 20 years, or find out some sort of other usage for them. So that's something which I'm not really concerned about, but often does come up as a concern.
Yeah, I mean, that will stop in the next 10-20 years. There's going to be some massive changes anyway, aren't there? I can just imagine it, and things that we know now, we'll look back in 10 years and go, oh, we were really early in there, weren't we? We were kind of like, just it's evolved so much since. In fact, right, definitely. So that leads me to another question, which is right. So where do you see yourself in the next 5-10 years with both organisations? Who are you wanting to kind of bring on board as clients, and who are you? Where are your kind of aspirations long term?
I think we're in a very fortunate position. Well, I'm in a very fortunate position, I should say, with having Fleety and plug charging. So having a company which is able to provide electric vehicles, but also having a foot in the camp of charge point operator. I think I'm very privileged to be able to see both sides of that coin as well on both sides of the industry. I think our plans are to grow both businesses and obviously expand the charge point operation, and obviously expand the Fleety side of the business as well. So the benefit of Fleety is this repeat business. Every 3-4 years, or at least cycle, depending on how long someone has the vehicle for, that's repeat. The more EVs we put on the road, the more public charging points they need. So that does create the opportunity for us then to say, well, actually, it's actually beneficial for us to push that business as hard as possible to try and get as many EVs on the road, because it creates demand for public charging. So I think 5 years is a long time, I think, in this sector. So much has happened in the last 2 years since I've started Fleety and really focused, laser focus on electric vehicles and sustainability. So it'd be interesting to see what happens over the next 5 years as battery technology improves. And obviously, as we're getting closer to the 2030 deadline in the UK, and obviously 2035, as we discussed earlier, in the EU, it'd be interesting to see how that trickles down. And lots of the OEMs have already made their commitments to go battery electric vehicles only by 2025. So we're now in a situation where, at the moment, people are transitioning from ICE to EV, where I think the next leasing or next vehicle choice they make is going to be EV to EV. So they would have already experienced an EV, So we're not going to be having similar conversations. It's going to be more of a case of, well, your previous EV did 250 miles range, and you now want this mile range. So I think the business is going to remain the same at its core. I think just having that consultative approach and scaling sustainably as well. So we're just in the process of finalising a funding round for Fleet E as well. So that's due to complete in April, which is really good for us, and that facilitates our next stage of growth. But I think we need to remain true to our mission, as an extent, if that's the right word to use, and keep that approach that we've currently got, because it obviously works, and whilst also remaining agile with how the industry is changing and how the demands of our customers are changing, both on the charging side of the business and also the fleet provision side of the business as well.
It'll be good to see all of this grow, and actually, if you're all the accolades, I'm sure you're going to be kind of having a massive kind of list of different additional accolades over the next kind of few years anyway, which will be which is brilliant, and just wait for you to kind of come further up. Yeah, well, I don't know where you were in the top 100, which is great. You're in it anyway, so it's fabulous. I can imagine you've got the kind of personality that I can imagine it's nice. You're a nice guy to deal with. Do you know what I mean? And actually, people work with people, don't they?
100%. Yeah.
So yeah. I'm going to stop waffling now, because if you know what I mean, you know what I'm trying to say, don't you? But look, so do you want to just plug your companies by giving your web addresses?
Yeah.
Okay. So web address for both both companies. What are they?
So Fleet E is fleet-e.co.uk.
Okay.
And then plug charging is plugcharging.co.uk as well.
Fabulous.
And you can find us on social media for both as well.
Yeah, so you're on LinkedIn for sure anyway, because I've seen you quite a lot on there.
Yeah.
You've got a Twitter handle. You're on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, so for Fleet E, it's just Fleet E UK. It's an underscore in there, but if you type in Fleet E UK, it'll come up. And then for plug charging, it's just plug charging is the handle for all of them as well.
Brilliant. Right. Well, good luck for you. For everything that you're doing. I think it's brilliant, and fingers crossed that things change in Wales, so that the increase in kind of in the infrastructure changes, and they start kind of putting their foot down a little bit to make sure it starts moving forward. So
no, but definitely, I think there was definitely an appetite in Wales, I think, with businesses for it, and all the businesses all the businesses are looking to reduce their emissions and looking to hit their environmental targets.
Yes.
And we see that on a daily basis. It's just a case of I'm a big fan of working collaboratively, and even with people in the industry, we work with lots of other people would call them competitors, but there's so much knowledge in the industry. I think it's better for people to work together and achieve those things, and we achieve a lot more working together than against each other. So I think people in Wales will see that, and hopefully Welsh government see that. They'll work with other people in the industry to collaborate and actually achieve those end goals, which obviously benefit everyone. It
is a very collaborative sector, which is great, and actually it's really nice to see. So and nice to I've met so many brilliant people like yourself, so it's great. We need that collaboration, don't we, moving forwards?
Definitely.
But listen, 100%. I want to just say thank you ever so much for your time. It's been lovely talking to you, Jarrad, and I want to see the prototype. I want to see it out and about doing things, because it was one hell of a vehicle. So good luck with that in the coming months, and yeah, thank you very much for your time.
No, thanks for having me, and obviously we'll keep you up to date with the developments of the business and how we progress throughout the next couple of months.
Wonderful. So to everybody else, I'm going to say thank you to Jarrad, and thank you for your time. I'll thank you all for listening and for watching, and I shall see you next time. Bye bye. You've been watching Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. Don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell icon, and you'll receive all of our weekly videos. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye.